like people are coming in.
We're live.
Quite a few.
I think we're ready when you are, Jakob.
Good evening, everyone. My name is László Jakaborsos. I'm the head of the programming department at Brooklyn Public Library. And I'm here to welcome everyone at this, without exaggeration, I can say historic moment. This is the first Lenape curated show in New York City. We were doing this show together with the Lenape Center in the last couple of months, and it's happening virtually right now. The actual show is taking place at our new branch, the Greenpoint branch, which I highly suggest to everyone to visit whenever you have the time. Our intention with this series, as you'll understand throughout the program, this is not just one exhibition, it's a series of events, discussions, debates, is to invite you to a discussion which is hopefully somewhat different from the prevailing narrative when it comes to the history of the Lenape nature. So hopefully you learn from the series, you learn about the history of the Lenape people from the Lenape people. So with this, I'll just give you a quick rundown of the evening. First, you'll meet the president of Brooklyn Public Library, Linda Johnson, in a few seconds. And then you'll meet our co-curator, Joe Baker, the co-founder and executive director of the Lenape Center. Joe will be on a pre-recorded walkthrough of the exhibition. And then right after, he'll join us, I would say live, but not live, semi-live, in real time on Zoom, and for showing two other short films, guiding us through the short films, and then joining to a Q&A with our team. And then after the Q&A, you'll learn more about the upcoming months-long events of the Lenapehoking series at Brooklyn Public Library at the Greenpoint branch. So with this, welcome everyone, and welcome Linda Johnson, the president of the library.
Thank you, Jakob, and thank you all for joining us to celebrate the Lenapehoking exhibition named for the Lenape homeland on which Greenpoint Library and all of our libraries stand. When we opened the new Greenpoint Library in 2020, we promised to honor the history of the Lenape homeland and inspire future generations to take better care of it. I want to thank the Lenape Center, especially Joe Baker, the Shelley and Donald Rubin Foundation, and the BPL Presents team, especially Cora Fisher and Joel Whitney. All of those thanks, of course, are for helping the library realize our pledge. The Lenapehoking exhibition, as Jakob said, the first Lenape curated exhibition in New York City, does not relegate Indigenous history to the distant past. The art you're about to see traces a through line to Lenape artists working today who have so much to teach us about stewardship and survival, about creating a continuity to beauty despite constant chaos. Their work reminds us of the power of our shared history and our shared community. And as a public library, it's our mission to ensure everyone has access to that power. So without further ado, let's join Joe at Greenpoint Library. Welcome, Joe, first on video and then in person.
There's no sound, Will.
So happy and proud to welcome you to this exhibition, Lenapehoking, the first ever Lenape curated exhibit in New York City here at Greenpoint, Brooklyn Public Library. In many ways, this exhibit is much more than just the art that you see. It's really symbolic of our return to the homeland. It's about a relationship to the land, to the people, to our histories, which began here at the point of contact. The beginning of the American story starts right here. And what I want you to think about as we move through some of the art today is about the history of the beginning of the American story and what that has meant to displaced people, people who have been dispossessed of their lands, people who have been projected further and further west through forced removals. And throughout all of this time of trauma and chaos, there has been a reverence and a focus on the beauty and the artistry of our culture. And that's what I want to share with you today. So if we go over here, we're so pleased that we were able to feature not only contemporary masterworks, but historical masterworks by Lenape artists of historical beaded bandolier bags. This bag, which is in the collection of the Brooklyn Museum of Art, is a spectacular example of Delaware Lenape beadwork. Abstract floral design motifs, wide straps terminating in 3 tabs are definitive of this style of Lenape beadwork. We know that the bag itself was probably inspired by the military bandolier that held shell casings. So it speaks to the adaptation of our people being inspired by design and then reinventing that design in a truly original, unique way. But also beyond the beauty, think about this historic period. This is probably around 1850. So given that date, we know that we were the main body of Lenape people located in Kansas on the last Federal Reserve of the Lenape in and around Lawrence, Kansas. So this bag was created during a period of upheaval and chaos, because by 1867, we were forced again to be removed to lands in Indian Territory. So throughout this period of constant upheaval in the movement of our people, not by will, not by choice, but by the US government, there was still time for the creation of these spectacular works of art. And I think that speaks to our resistance. It also speaks to our survivance as a culture and as a people. Another historic bag in the collection is this spectacular example, which is most unusual because it features cut beads, which you normally do not find in the old beadwork. These are very small, probably size 14, 15 beads, and they are cut. Beautiful color, a beautiful sense. The colorway of this bag is not only unusual, but spectacular. There's a certain poetry here. Also part of our mission at Lenape Center is education. So another part inclusion in this exhibit is label text, which has been created by Colorado College students during my Intro to Museum Studies class in the fall. Lenape Center invited students, college students, to create label copy for this exhibit. And you're going to find that label copy as observations from outsiders, very poetic and telling of the importance of Lenape art and culture. As a curator, I kind of thought, oh my, I've included my own work in this exhibit. And let me share a little further thought regarding that, because once again, that disrupts sort of the hierarchical formality of museum practice. And I did that because this exhibit really speaks to family and connections, the familial. And that I want to share with you in a more defined way through the discussion of this piece, The Turkey Feather Cape, by tribal member Rebecca Half-Lowry. The turkey feather cape was common among Woodlands tribes here in the Northeast. It also could be found in the West. Pueblo people make these incredible turkey feather robes and blankets. But these have not really survived in collections. The first turkey feather cape that I saw was some 20 years ago in a collection. So there are not many of these. So this work was created anew for this exhibit by Rebecca and her mother-in-law, Sandra Lowry, who is a member of the Yurok Nation. And out of reference to her Yurok culture, the inclusion of a shell and beadwork neck piece, which is a sort of a new contemporary edition that sings of the joining of two families, the Lenape and the Yurok people. Also in the exhibit is the bean tapestries, which is an example of our partnership with Hudson Valley Farm Hub. 3 years ago, we started the process of returning seeds to the homeland, the beans and corn, ancestral beans and corn, to grow here in the homeland, to be returned to our communities once we had a sufficient number of product. And that is in process now. But what I think about when I encounter the bean tapestry and the beadwork is the really magic potential of this tiny seed and the tiny bead, both having the power in combination to create life, to create beauty, and to create sustenance for people. So we hope that those thoughts are with you as you begin to explore and experience the exhibit Lenapehoking. And along with that, in development now is a very rich website that has further information being put together by the Brooklyn Public Library, who's been immense friends, who've become part of the Lenape family, who've invested so much energy and time and work in presenting this exhibit here at Greenpoint. And in conclusion, let me say that I am so thrilled as a museum person to be able to present this exhibit in a public library. And to speak further to that topic, I love the idea, and I think it's fitting that we upend museum hierarchies and we begin to present art at the very street grassroots level of experience here in the library, here where people gather to come in out of the cold, to come in and to learn and share and to experience art and culture here at an educational institution that is very democratic, that is open to all people, as the arts should be. They should be experienced by each and every one of us. So we welcome you. We hope you'll come back often to the museum, and we thank you for your interest in our art and culture.
Over to you, Joe.
Good evening, everyone. To follow up on the video presentation, I'm so happy to be with you live this evening, live in this new pandemic world that we live in. But I want to share two videos with you, which I think will expand the narrative around the Turkey Feather Cape, and also the project with our partner, Hudson Valley Farm Hub, which is a seed rematriation project in the Hudson River Valley. The Turkey Feather Capes, there are records of the colonists having first encounters with Lenape people here on the shores of Manhattan, and witnessing these spectacular turkey feather mantles, turkey feather capes being worn by Lenape people, both male and female. But they almost all but disappeared by the early 1800s. So this exhibit is really, about a homecoming, about a return of our people, our culture, our presence here in Manhattan. So I asked Rebecca Half-Lowry, a fellow tribal member, if she would create for this exhibit a turkey feather cape. So let's go to Becky now. Let's hear her own words about that process and what it was like, how she found her way through the creative process to create and bring to you, the public, this spectacular example of our history and our future voice.
The wonderful thing about turkey feathers is they change color according to the light. This reminds me of all the roles we play as Indigenous women. We do what is needed according to the situation. I do hope more capes return to my people, to the Northeastern region, along with the cultural roles they hold. And I challenge residents of Lenapehoking to make more public space, more sacred space available for Lenape people, so we can tell our own stories, tell our own histories, express ourselves artistically and culturally, have more opportunities to caretake the land. One issue.
Thank you, Becky. 3 years ago, we started a joint project, a seed rematriation project with Hudson Valley Farm Hub. And the purpose of that was to return ancestral seeds to the ancestral soil and to grow the crops again here in Lenapehoking. So what we found in this project is another family, another group of individuals who are so committed and devoted to continuing Lenapehoking. And I want to share with you what I think is a very moving moment of the Harvest Festival this past fall in Hurley, New York. So it's with great excitement and great reverence that I invite you to see this video.
Where did you go to? Because I live in a service that can go.
Yeah, Georgia.
That's what I looked at for the next 6 months.
We're so grateful that you could be with us today in this very special harvest of the crops here at the Farm Club.
And I used to work with him, and I used to grow stuff for him. To put a firm you know, he's like creating, well, like lettuce tops.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you're not learning.
Are the beans in the back there?
Here.
Are the beans?
Serval's like around here. Like trying to get them to mature a little earlier. First, I'm patting, I'm pulling branches down. Oh, it's a labor of love.
Passion. Memorable day. Is this the venison one?
Yeah, that's it.
Is this the vegan one? Yeah. Okay. She had look at that color.
Did we ever tell you about when we were driving back the first time we met you?
No.
And I don't know where we were.
Yeah, so this is all acorns and corn, and then this is just the straight corn.
That's why we take our stills off, our hats, so
Yeah, so it's
energy, whatever it is, I'm very familiar.
feel it.
It is.
Yes.
After hundreds of years. Oh, yes. Whoever we invited into
Is this Lenape corn?
our everything.
Wow.
Next year.
Everybody's covered already. When we come here,
Food
find a
softening.
little bit more personal. We have your medicine society.
And I'm just starting to
Talk to their medicine. I'm really beginning.
Big change going to the museum.
Oh,
Thank you all so much for that. I want to especially thank the Lenape Center and Joe Baker, Adrian Kumans, and everyone at the Lenape Center for giving us the honor of working on this exhibition and program series with you, as well as a published anthology that will be released at the end of the show that really centers on Lenape perspectives and gives us a chance to hear stories in an absolutely authentic way that we haven't had access to previously. So thank you again. And I just wanted to direct all of our participants who are here, all of our guests, if you have a question, please don't drop it in the chat, but rather on the bottom bar, you will see a Q&A icon. And if you could put your questions there, we'll begin to start reading your questions momentarily. Joel?
You've got some good ones in there, Cora.
I'm going to start with one, and Joe, I'm just going to read some of these out loud, so you don't have to look through the whole list. One question, just playing off of the video we just saw, was where and how did you find the ancestral beans and seeds?
Well, this is, for me, has been a great learning process because I had never thought about seeds. I mean, I knew the value of seeds. I knew the preciousness of seeds. I knew that seeds had been carried by individuals as they left the homeland, as they fled and were forced into a Western removal. And I knew that one of our tribal members, Nora Thompson Dean, had within her collection corn seeds that had been carried through her family for generations from the original lands here in the Northeast to Oklahoma. And upon her passing, she ensured that the seeds, the corn seeds, would be preserved, maintained, contained, and she made them. She gave them to the USDA seed bank in Iowa, and we were able to access those seeds and then return them to the homeland. So, you know, for me, I think about our cultural objects, which are held in museum collections on the shelves and basements. And I think about also how other people hold seeds, which is, you know, really speaks to our cultural heritage, that they hold those as collections. So it's been a hide and seek, search and find kind of mission to find these seeds and to return them here.
Beautiful, thank you. And on that note, we have a couple more questions about cultural preservation. One is specifically about the turkey feather cape. And with the revival of that tradition, do you think Indigenous communities will start to see the importance of restoring the ancient matriarchal traditions that were once honored? I'm assuming that these traditions are very much intact, but I would love to hear from you.
Well, I think we as a people very much need the discipline, the focus, the concentration of these very complex, time-consuming, tedious art forms. They require us to be still. They require us to be present and reactive and responsive to the moment. Our world is we're bombarded constantly with information, with news, with ideas. We're constantly on the move. And it's rare that we have an opportunity to be quiet, to be present in the moment. And when you're doing beadwork, when you're doing feather work, which is very intricate, it's very time consuming, it's a moment for reflection. It's a moment for revisiting your thoughts. It's a moment for holding good thoughts in your heart, in your spirit. And I think we all need that today. So, you know, I would like to see, you know, a renaissance of these traditional art forms within our own communities. They're beautiful, powerful gifts of, you know, the gifts of our heritage, the gifts of our ancestors. And we really need to celebrate that. I know as a beader, it's really interesting to me, the psychology of that, because if I have not been beading for a while and I you know, I come to beading and my mind is like, oh, I need to do this. Oh, I need to do that. I have to go here. It's psychologically, there's such a resistance to being still. And it's like a runner, you know, once you break through that moment, then there you go. You're in this totally other world. And I think we as people need that kind of moment to recalibrate, to rebalance, and to refocus on what's really important in life.
Amen. We have a question that I think arises out of that delicious celebratory homecoming meal banquet that you had. The question is whether the stew you were eating was a Three Sisters stew, and maybe you can expand and elaborate a little bit about the Three Sisters growing practice.
Beans, corns, and squash, and you know they are dependent on one another structurally for the productivity of the plant itself. They depend on one another as we depend on each other. And certainly as we, Lenape Center, we're very much dependent on you at Brooklyn Public Library Greenpoint as part of the team to make this happen. So, you know, in many ways, the development of the exhibition was a kind of Three Sisters moment because it took all of us, it took all of our efforts, our expertise, our energy, our focus to make that happen. We greatly appreciative of that. The stew that we had at the Harvest Festival included all three types of the beans that we are growing up north. The cornbread that we had was actually made, the cornmeal was made from our corn. And, you know, we had this delicious, phenomenal blue cornmeal and made cornbread. It was pretty amazing.
Definitely making my mouth water. Joe, what has been the most impactful part of curating this exhibit? And I know you mentioned the synergy of us working together institutionally, which is such an honor that you've bestowed on us. But if you could speak to perhaps what it means to have been doing this work since 2009 and to now have this exhibition.
It's magic. Magic is the word that comes to mind. We at Lenape Center have been working toward knocking on doors, approaching various museums and cultural institutions since 2009, in hopes that we could really mount an exhibition that would celebrate the art and culture of the original people of Manhattan. And it was not until we found Brooklyn Public Library did that door open. So for us, it was a moment of rejoicing. We were like, wow, this is really going to happen, you know, and let's see what we can make possible through working together. And we also are very grateful to be in this amazing contemporary space, Greenpoint. It's a new library. It's transparent. It's open. It's very much a pulse point for the community, and you know, it's thrilling for us to be able to present art at that level.
I'm going to just try to summarize. We have several entities of questions. Some of them are about education and making the educational work that you and we are doing together accessible to young folks. A lot of the questions coming up have to do with forced removal and, you know, whether forced removals happened by foot, et cetera. And I guess I just want to perhaps, if you can elaborate a little bit or point to some of the future discussions that we're also going to have.
Well, upcoming in the anthology, which is, you know, presently in the works, there will be essays that really talk specifically about the various forced removals of our people, and you know, the destinations of the place of those removals. It's important for people to understand that this was not just one movement. It was not just a people being moved one time. It was over a course of years, hundreds of years, and it included 5 very specific different removals of our people. So from the original homelands in the Northeast to lands in Ohio, from Ohio to lands in Indiana, from Indiana to lands in Missouri, from Missouri to lands in Kansas for the main body, and then finally into Indian Territory, with 2 different movements out of Ohio, one with a group of Lenape people traveling with Moravian missionaries into Canada, and then another group moving south into Texas, Lenape people to live among the Caddo people. So it's a very complex history, and I think people will really find particularly schools and educational institutions, they'll really find this anthology that's in development a great resource.
Amazing. And for our last question, Jason Martin is asking, how can we as settlers contribute and help with the process of reconciliation and land back?
I think for me, and I'm just speaking personally, the greatest contribution that anyone can make is to educate themselves to the true history of the development of this country and really come to terms with it's not really a pleasant story. It's really a story of genocide. It's a story of violence. It's a story of misplaced people. But we have to begin there. We have to finally reckon with the fact that the founding of this country was based on the backs of and souls of our people. It was a genocide, not only in terms of our population, but in terms of the environment. If you think about the true history here in the Northeast from 1600 to 1800, 200 years, 95% of the old growth forest was cut. It was total environmental ecocide. So, these things are difficult discussions, but we all need to come to terms with that's how we heal. We have to understand what happened, and then we have to find ways to heal. And that, to me, can be found through the celebration of the arts and culture of a people.
Thank you so much. Joel, do you want to draw any other questions from the Q&A that I might have missed that are grabbing at you? That was a pretty powerful piece you just shared with us, Joe. So,
Yeah, I think that's a good place to end. And I'm just going to introduce myself, everyone. I'm Joel Whitney, and I just want to echo what my colleagues, Linda, Jakob, and Cora have all said. It's an honor to work with Joe and Adrian and everyone at the Lenape Center on this unique project. And I'm so glad those of you who are here could hear Joe's vision of this step toward return of Lenape artists and also historians and Lenape people to the homeland, Lenapehoking. And as you've heard, this is a rich exhibit. It's not only these beautiful artworks that Joe has shown us all tonight, which really do need to be seen in person at Greenpoint on Norman Avenue near the G. But in addition to these master works, Lenapehoking at Brooklyn Public Library is a conversation with you here in Brooklyn and in New York, guided by Joe and the Lenape Center. And the conversation will take place by way of these panels on history, celebrations of the return of Lenape culture, quite literally in the form of seeds and also fruit trees. And there's a garden on the roof of our Greenpoint branch. And so when the weather gets better, we'll be able to do some of these programs outside, we hope. These are vital matters of life and continuance. And these conversations, through them, we hope to help the Lenape Center update the story, the history, setting the record straight and celebrating the survivance and return of the original people of Lenapehoking, which we have mistakenly called New York City all of these years. You can find the offerings throughout the winter into spring through April 30th on our website at bklynlibrary.org/Lenapehoking. My colleagues will drop those links into the chat. But some highlights include discussions on the myth of the purchase of Manhattan, the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous persons with Lenape community members, lawyers, allies, and even an ally named Gloria Steinem, who will be joining that conversation on March 7th. We'll be talking in April again about the return of Lenape seeds and the fruit trees and much more with our newest branch, the Center for Brooklyn History. And I want to thank our colleagues at Greenpoint who've helped us do this. I want to thank our colleagues at the Center for Brooklyn History. And of course, repeat one more time that it's such an honor to work with you, Joe. And I want to thank everyone who came tonight and who will be continuing to engage with this project. Thanks so much.